Now friends, this morning, maybe your bad situation is still into worse. I don't know. But my question, will you keep loving Jesus even through the bad to worse? Your application question underneath number 1. Will you keep loving when bad goes to worse? I don't know what your situation is this morning. But I can tell you that Mary's situation went from bad to worse. She went from watching Jesus be crucified, killed, buried, and now she came back and he's not there. This is horrible. This is a disturbing discovery. Will you keep the faith, even in the midst of hard times, that Jesus is still alive, that Jesus is still in control? I believe we can because that's what Mary did, and we're going to see in our next section of text, verses 10 through 15, if you'd like to follow along. Then the disciples went back to their homes, but Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over and looked into the tomb and saw 2 angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head, the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. "Woman," he said, "why are you crying? Who is it that you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will go and get him." Fill in line number 2. Greetings from the grave. Greetings from the grave. I get all kinds of questions when I read the text sometimes. I look at this particular section and I wonder, why did Mary stay? Why did Mary stay by the grave? Friends, I believe when we talk about love, when we talk about real love, when we talk about true love, love is always the last to leave. Sometimes love never lets go. When we talk about love, and when we talk about tragedy, and how love and tragedy can sometimes weave itself together so tightly that it makes us hurt, this is what we find with Mary on Easter morning. The disciples went home, but Mary stayed. Why? Because Mary was in love with her God. This isn't a new thing from Scripture. We remember Job said something to the effect, "Though he slay me, I will hope in him," as he went through his tragedy. As children, we learned the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who faced a fiery furnace. But in response to the king's request to bow down, they said, "Even if the Lord doesn't save us, even if this situation goes from bad to worse, even if I hear a call from the grave, I'm going to keep loving God. I'm going to remain faithful to God." I believe in verse 11, we find Mary hitting rock bottom. Jesus is gone. The disciples went home. It's dark. She's crying. I wonder if Mary ever in her whole life felt more alone. There may be some of you sitting here this morning that feel alone. Even though you're surrounded by people, even though you're in a well-lit, warm sanctuary, you feel cold and you feel alone. But then, in the midst of her loneliness, who shows up? Who shows up? Jesus shows up. Did you ever notice that sometimes you have to get to the bottom before God opens up your eyes, before you open up your eyes, and you can see Him standing there? Do I have any Chronicles of Narnia fans here? Any at all? Did you read all the books? Because there's a book called Horse and His Boy. It's one of my favorites. And there's a scene in there where the main character, a little boy named Shasta, who was orphaned as a little boy, and he's on this great adventure, this great trek. And he's trying to save a nation, and he's trying to save his friends. And at one point, he's all alone, and it looks like everything is lost. He's riding this dumb horse that won't pay attention to him, won't take his commands up a mountain trail all by himself, and fog rolls in, and it starts to rain, and he starts to despair that he was ever even born. And suddenly he realizes that there's a lion walking with him, walking beside him, and telling him all of this happened for a reason. All of this happened because I was here the whole time. I was moving you towards this dark path. But you're not alone. You're never alone. Now, why didn't Peter and John see the angels? It's another question. I don't know. But it does say, it doesn't say in the text that they were crying. It doesn't say that they were moved the way Mary was. They didn't see what Mary saw. Because I don't believe they needed to see what Mary saw. And so she does. The angels and Jesus both ask the same question. And it's a great question. And it's one that I'd like to pose to you as your application question number 2. Why are you crying this morning? Maybe you're not crying on the outside. Maybe you're crying on the inside. But why are you crying this morning? Jesus might be asking you that same question today. But Mary's answer tells it all. When she responds to this person that she thought was the gardener, because love keeps looking. Love never gives up. Love says, even though he's dead, I still want to find him. I still want to love him as best I can.